The Mask of Peace, the Celestial Accord, had been humanity's greatest achievement in the stars. For 5 years, Earth's ambassadors had walked the halls of the great station orbiting Kepler-4 for 2b, their faces bright with the same infectious optimism that had once united their own war-torn world. Ambassador Elena Vasquez remembered her first day among the stars, when she had stood before the Council of Worlds and spoken words that would echo through history. "We come not as conquerors, but as friends. We bring not weapons, but healing, hands and open hearts." The galaxy had been skeptical at first. Humanity was young, barely a century into space travel, while civilizations like the ancient Kethmari had been exploring the cosmos for millennia. Their crystalline forms pulsed with gentle light as they observed these newcomers with their strange habit of showing teeth when pleased. The gaseous Zephyrians drifted through their containment fields, their ethereal voices carrying notes of cautious curiosity. Even the militant Jorvac tribes had lowered their plasma rifles when human medics rushed to help during the Proxima Plague, asking for nothing in return. But it was the Scarith Dominion that watched with the greatest interest. Their reptilian forms, scarred by countless battles, studied humanity with predatory calculation. General Thrakma, his scales bearing the ritual scars of 100 conquered worlds, had observed the humans for months. They built hospitals, not fortress worlds. They sent teachers, not warriors. They offered trade agreements that seemed almost naive in their generosity. To the Scarith, who had built their empire on the simple principle that strength ruled the stars, humanity appeared to be nothing more than clever prey. The humans seemed to embody everything the Scarith despised about the modern galaxy. They spoke of cooperation instead of conquest, of healing instead of dominance. When the Jorvac rebellion threatened to destabilize the Outer Rim, it was human negotiators who walked unarmed into war zones, their translator devices working overtime. As they spoke of peace, when the crystalline blight threatened to destroy the Kethmari homeworld, it was human scientists who worked for months without rest to find a cure, refusing all payment except the friendship of a grateful species. Ambassador Vasquez had become something of a legend in diplomatic circles. Her gift for languages was exceeded only by her ability to find common ground. Between species that had been enemies for centuries, she had negotiated the truce of Vega, ended the mineral wars of the asteroid belt, and personally delivered medicine to plague-stricken worlds that others had abandoned. The galaxy had begun to see humanity not as another potential threat, but as the conscience it had been missing. This perception of human weakness was exactly what General Thrakma had been waiting for. The Scarith had been testing human resolve for months, pushing boundaries with increasing boldness. They had seized human trade vessels, claiming territorial violations. They had demanded tribute from human colonies, citing ancient conquest rights. Each time, the humans had responded with diplomacy, offering compensation, seeking peaceful resolution. To the Scarith, this was not wisdom, but cowardice. The test came during the Harvest Festival on New Geneva Colony. The agricultural world had been humanity's pride, a testament to their ability to transform barren rock into fertile paradise. 50,000 humans lived there, farming the rich soil they had spent decades cultivating. The colony was home to families from across Earth, their children playing in schools that welcomed young beings from a dozen species. It was a symbol of everything humanity claimed to represent in the galaxy. When the Scarith fleet dropped out of hyperspace above New Geneva, there was no warning, no declaration of war, no demand for surrender. General Thrakma had decided to send a message that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity's age of naive idealism was over. The orbital bombardment began at dawn, plasma cannons turning the morning sky into a furnace of death. The first targets were the schools, where human children sat beside young Kethmari and Zephyrian offspring, all learning together in the spirit of galactic unity. The massacre lasted 6 hours. 50,000 civilians died in the first wave, their bodies incinerated by plasma fire that left nothing but shadows burned into the walls. The hospitals that human doctors had built were reduced to rubble. The agricultural complexes that had fed 3 systems were turned to glass. The Scarith then landed ground forces to hunt down any survivors, their cameras recording every execution for broadcast across the galaxy. The images that reached the Celestial Accord were beyond horrific. Families fleeing burning homes, only to be cut down by Scarith pulse rifles. Children's toys scattered among the ashes of daycare centers. The great library where human and alien scholars had worked together to preserve the galaxy's knowledge. Now a crater that would never heal. The Scarith had not just destroyed a colony, they had murdered the very idea of peaceful coexistence. The galaxy waited for humanity's response. The Kethmari pulsed with angry light, their crystals resonating with harmonic frequencies that shattered glass across their homeworld. The Zephyrian songs turned to howls of rage that could be heard across dimensional barriers. Even the normally stoic Jorvac tribes sharpened their weapons, ready to stand with their human allies against this atrocity. But Earth was silent. The human ambassadors withdrew from the council chambers without explanation. Trade ships returned to Earth's space, their crews refusing to speak to alien crews who had been their friends for years. The emergency session of the Celestial Accord proceeded without human participation. Their empty seats, a stark reminder of what had been lost. Ambassador Vasquez's final appearance before the council was brief and chilling. She stood at the podium where she had once spoken of hope and friendship, her face a mask of controlled emotion. The chamber was packed with representatives from every member species, all waiting for the human response to genocide. But Vasquez said only 7 words. Earth recalls all ambassadors. Diplomatic relations suspended. As she walked toward the chamber exit, the Zephyrian delegate called out, "What will you do now?" Vasquez paused at the doorway, her hand resting on the seal of the Celestial Accord. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight that made the assembled aliens shiver in their various atmospheres. We will remember. The human ships that had brought hope to dying worlds and medicine to plague-stricken colonies began their journey home. But as they crossed the galaxy, something changed. The cheerful human crews who had once invited aliens aboard for cultural exchange now worked in silence. The ships that had been painted in bright colors, announcing their peaceful intentions, gradually took on a darker hue. By the time they reached Earth space, they were black as the void between stars. The Scarith celebrated their victory with typical brutality. General Thrakma broadcast his triumph across the galaxy, standing atop the ruins of New Geneva's Capitol building. "This is what happens to those who mistake kindness for strength," he declared, his scarred face twisted with savage satisfaction. "The humans have shown their true nature. They are prey, not predators. The galaxy belongs to those strong enough to take it." But even as the Scarith proclaimed their dominance, something was stirring in the depths of space. Long-range sensors detected movement in the Earth system. Massive energy signatures that didn't match any known human technology. The gentle trade ships that had once carried grain and medicine were being recalled, but they were not alone. Other vessels, hidden in the shadow of Jupiter's moons, were beginning to move. Ships that the galaxy had never seen, built for purposes that no one had imagined. The Kethmari, with their ability to perceive quantum fluctuations, were the first to sense the change. Their crystals vibrated with frequencies that spoke of something vast awakening, something that had been sleeping in the darkness between Earth and Mars. The Zephyrians, attuned to the cosmic winds, felt currents of power that made their gaseous forms shiver with anticipation and dread. As the last human diplomatic vessel crossed the boundary of Earth's space, a single transmission was broadcast across the galaxy. It was not sent through the official channels of the Celestial Accord, but through every communication system simultaneously. The message was simple, transmitted in every known language and several that had been thought extinct. 3 words that would change everything. Never again, never. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what humanity would do. The Scarith continued their celebrations, convinced they had broken the spirits of their enemies. But in the depths of space, something was stirring. The humans had worn their mask of peace for 5 years, and the galaxy had come to believe it was their true face. Now, with their children dead and their dreams of unity shattered, humanity was about to show the cosmos what they really were beneath the smile. The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human war was about to begin. The awakening of the war machine. 3 months after the New Geneva massacre, the galaxy had begun to settle into a new normal. The Scarith Dominion had expanded their territory, claiming 7 formerly neutral systems, while the Celestial Accord struggled to respond. Trade routes that had once been protected by human peacekeepers now fell under Scarith protection, with the expected tribute demanded from all passing vessels. The Reptilian Empire seemed unstoppable, their confidence growing with each system that fell without resistance. Ambassador Alina Vasquez had not been seen since her final appearance before the Council. The human embassy on Kepler Station remained sealed, its windows dark, its corridors empty. The Kethmari had tried to reach out through quantum channels, their crystalline forms pulsing with concern for their former allies. The Zephyrians had sent harmonic messages through dimensional rifts, hoping to comfort the grieving humans. All had received the same response: silence. It was the Yorvak tribal scout ship Bloodhawk that first detected the anomaly. Captain Grigstar, a veteran of countless border skirmishes, was patrolling the outer edge of the Vega system when his sensors registered something impossible. A massive gravitic distortion was approaching from the direction of Earth, but there was nothing visible on any spectrum. The distortion was moving at near light speed, affecting space-time itself, but remaining completely invisible to conventional detection methods. The first sign of humanity's true nature came without warning. The Scarith fortress world of Karthak, the military headquarters of their entire fleet, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a heavily fortified planet bristling with orbital defense platforms and housing 3 million Scarith warriors. The next moment, there was nothing but empty space and a slowly expanding cloud of quantum particles. Number. Explosion, no energy discharge, no debris. The planet had been disintegrated at the molecular level. Its matter converted to pure energy and dispersed across the cosmic background, radiation. General Thrakma, commanding the Scarith war fleet, from his flagship Devastator, received the impossible reports with disbelief. Systems malfunction, he snarled at his communication officer. Karthak cannot simply disappear. but the sensor readings were unmistakable. Where the fortress world had stood for 3 centuries, there was now nothing but void. The quantum signature was unlike anything in known physics, as if reality itself had been edited to remove the planet from existence. The second strike came 6 hours later. The Scarith mining colony of Drekma, source of the rare minerals that powered their fleet, underwent what could only be described as temporal displacement. The entire system, including its star, was moved backwards in time by 3 billion years. The industrial infrastructure, the mining equipment, the 200,000 Scarith workers, all found themselves orbiting a young, uninhabitable sun in a universe that had not yet evolved complex life. They were not killed. They were simply removed from the timeline where they could matter. It was then that the galaxy saw them. The human fleet emerged from quantum-fold space like death itself made manifest. These were not the cheerful trade vessels that had once brought medicine and hope to dying worlds. These ships were geometric impossibilities. Their hulls constructed from matter that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. They moved without propulsion, their passage through space creating ripples in reality that bent light and twisted time. The flagship was a cathedral of dark metal and crystallized energy, its spires reaching into dimensions that mortal minds could not perceive. Along its hull, written in letters that burned with the fury of collapsed stars, was its name. Never again, the ship was commanded by someone the galaxy had never seen. A human who had shed the mask of diplomacy to reveal the face of absolute war. Admiral Sarah Chen had been Earth's greatest military mind, kept hidden from the galaxy for 5 years while humanity played its role as peaceful traders. Her record was classified beyond the reach of any alien intelligence, but those who knew whispered that she had designed weapons that could unmake the laws of physics themselves. When the footage of New Geneva's burning schools had reached Earth, it was Chen who had stood before the Human Defense Council and spoken the words that sealed the Scarith's fate. They killed our children. Show them what happens when you murder. The future. The human fleet moved through space like a plague of metal angels, each ship a masterpiece of destructive engineering. They wielded weapons that the galaxy had never imagined, reality bombs that could erase matter from existence, temporal cannons that aged entire fleets to dust in seconds, quantum viruses that infected the very fabric of space-time. But perhaps, most terrifying of all was their precision. They did not destroy randomly or in anger. They killed with surgical efficiency, each strike calculated to maximize fear and minimize collateral damage to innocent species. The Scarith fleet, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, was dismantled like a clockwork toy in the hands of a curious child. Their plasma cannons, which had turned New Geneva into a furnace, were neutralized by fields that converted energy into harmless light. Their armor, forged from materials that could withstand the heart of a star, was dissolved by nanites that ate atomic bonds. Their warriors, bred for conquest and trained for war, found themselves facing enemies who fought not with weapons but with the fundamental forces of the universe itself. General Thrakma's final transmission was broadcast across the galaxy as his flagship died around him. "What are you?" he demanded, his voice breaking with the terror of a predator who had discovered he was prey. The response came from Admiral Chen herself, her face appearing on every screen in the Scarith fleet. She looked exactly as she had 5 years ago when humanity first joined the galactic community, but her eyes held depths that spoke of terrible knowledge. "We are what we have always been," she said, her voice carrying the weight of a species that had survived ice ages and world wars, that had turned their own planet into a garden through will and sacrifice. We are the children of a world that taught us the price of peace. We are the inheritors of those who swore that genocide would never again go unpunished. We are human, and we remember everything. The destruction of the Scarith fleet was complete. Within 18 hours, 300 ships, the pride of a militaristic civilization, were reduced to quantum foam that would eventually condense into new stars. The Scarith colonies, built on the bones of conquered worlds, were evacuated by human ships that appeared without warning. The civilian populations were transported to neutral worlds, their weapons destroyed, their infrastructure disabled with technology that would take them centuries to rebuild. But the humans were not finished. Using intelligence gathered during 5 years of peaceful trade, they systematically dismantled every organization that had supported the Scarith. Arms dealers found their weapons turning to dust in their warehouses. Slavers discovered their ships transported to the heart of stars. Mercenary companies woke to find their bases relocated to the outer darkness between galaxies. The message was clear. Those who profited from genocide would find no sanctuary in the cosmos. The galaxy watched in horror and fascination as humanity revealed its true nature. The Kethmari, their crystals resonating with quantum frequencies, realized that human technology was based on principles that their ancient science had only theorized. The Zephyrians, sensitive to dimensional energies, felt the fabric of space-time, itself bending around human vessels. Even the Jorvac tribes, who had thought themselves the greatest warriors in the galaxy, looked upon human weapons and saw their own primitive nature. The Celestial Accord convened an emergency session, but this time the human chair was not empty. Admiral Chen stood before the assembled delegates, her uniform bearing no insignia of rank, her face carrying the same gentle expression that Ambassador Vasquez had worn when she spoke of peace. But the power that radiated from her presence made the strongest aliens in the galaxy shrink back in their seats. "You have questions," Chen said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "You wonder how we hid our true nature for so long. You ask why we pretended to be something. We were not. The answer is simple. We were not pretending. We are a species capable of infinite compassion and absolute destruction. We chose to show you our better angels because we hoped you would choose to do the same." The Zephyrian delegate, his gaseous form trembling with harmonic distress, voiced the question that haunted every mind in the chamber. "What are you going to do now? Will you conquer us as you conquered the Scarith?" Chun's smile was sad and beautiful and terrible. "We will do what we have always done. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. We will heal the wounded, feed the hungry, and comfort the grieving. We will continue to be the friends you knew, the allies you trusted. But we will also be the nightmare that haunts those who would commit genocide. We will be the shadow that follows those who would murder children in their schools." She gestured to the empty space where the Scarith delegate had once sat. "The Scarith thought they could test our resolve by killing our innocence. They learned that there are some tests that destroy those who conduct them. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. And we will make sure that no species ever again mistakes our kindness for weakness." The human fleet dispersed across the galaxy, but they did not return to Earth. Instead, they took up positions in the dark spaces, between stars, invisible guardians watching over the trade routes and colonies that had once been protected by diplomacy alone. The cheerful human traders returned to their posts, bringing medicine and hope as they always had. But now the galaxy knew that behind every smile, every extended hand, every offer of friendship, stood the implied promise that those who would harm the innocent would face, the unleashed fury of a species that had turned war into an art form. The age of naive idealism was over. The age of protected peace had begun, and in the depths of space, human vessels bearing names like Never Again, Remember New Geneva, and for the children kept their silent vigil, ensuring that the galaxy would never forget what happened when humanity finally removed the mask of peace and showed the cosmos their true face. The humans had not conquered the galaxy. They had become its conscience, its protector, and its most terrible judge. And in the years that followed, when young aliens learned about the history of the stars, they would be told the story of the species that smiled easily, laughed in chaos, and welcomed outsiders with open hands. But they would also learn the most important lesson of all, that those who would test human kindness by murdering human children would discover that some species, when pushed too far, do not break. They become something far more dangerous than any conqueror. They become the guardians of Never Again.